Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. I recently put a video on my channel that was originally on one rental at a time because I was actually concerned with sharing that many details on my channel, trying to make sure I don't sound like I'm bragging because I'm trying to share the numbers to help people understand. And the problem is comparing year 10 to year 1. And one of the things that came up in this portfolio deep delve that Matt the Lumberjack Landlord and Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time were gracious enough to do with me, because that's the whole point of my channel. I literally made a channel for a year long so I can get 2 pros to tell me what to do. It's really been a long con. So I appreciate you both taking the time to do that. But one of the comments that came up after I released the video, and some people have messaged me or emailed me, or there have been some comments, how do you get so much cash flow? I have 16 rental units, 7 properties. My cash flow every month, and cash flow for me is after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So future expenses. My cash flow is about this much over $14,000 a month. So 16 units, 14, that's almost $1,000 a unit. It's like 8 something is my average. So I thought I'd make a really quick video where I cover a couple of the things that I've done to increase cash flow. And then I have 2 pros who've had 2 decades each to figure out ways to increase cash flow. So the first thing for me is the thing that they don't like about my portfolio. I have never done a cash out refinance. I have never done a home equity line of credit. I like to save up a down payment, start with a good equity position. One of my properties I purchased 5% down. The rest have all been 20 or 25. So I start with good equity. My yield that I'm shooting for is a 10% cash on cash return. So the more money I put down, the better the cash flow is for me. I purchased several of my properties when the interest rates were above 5%, 5.5, 6.0. And in 2020, I was able to refinance about half my portfolio to 3%. That greatly increased cash flow. Another thing I've done is I purchased duplexes where each side had 2 bedrooms, but they also had a den or a family room. So an example is I purchased one duplex where the rents at $1,100 got me the yield I was looking for. I was making a 10% return with $1,100 each side. I put in one wall on each side, turned a den or a family room into a 3rd bedroom, and each side now, it made sense at $1,100. Each side is now rented out for $2,000. So the cash flow is $800 plus because I haven't touched equity. I'm growing slower. I only have 7 properties in 10 years, but the cash flow is close to $800 to $1,000. And I do have 1 paid off property, a single family house that's rented for $2,200 a month. So $200 for taxes and insurance, $200 for repairs. I'm cash flowing about $1,800 on that one. So that one kind of skews the numbers a little, but that's why if you've seen that video, it seems a little confusing that when you listen to BiggerPockets world, 100 or 200 a door is the goal with the Burr method or something like that, which I haven't done. So that's my Cliff Notes version. Let's go to Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord. First, you have currently, I believe, 117 units. You've been investing for a little over 20 years. What are things that you do to increase the cash flow on your units?
So can't beat time in the market. That's a big thing, time in the market. And then for me, we do a lot of value add. And so value add is, I know that you like to buy stuff basically done. And so for us, we do a lot more value add stuff. And the value add stuff is actually a massive multiplier. So a lot of my duplexes, they don't make $1,000 a door. They make $2,500 a door or $2,000 a door. That's a combination of time in the market. And it's a combination of, we took an asset that was, quite frankly, needed a ton of money invested. And when I say ton, 25, 30, 35,000, usually in that range, nicer heating systems, redone floors, redone kitchens and baths, nicely painted, new trim work, doors swapped out, that sort of stuff. So I think the biggest 2 movers for me is time in the market, which allows me to then, down select from a refi rate where I was in the 5s, 6s, and, now I'm in the high 3s, low 4s on all that stuff. Certainly did take a cash out as well, but the other component along with time in the market is, for me, it was value add. So when the banks look at my balance sheet, they're amazed. So like, where are you getting these returns? I bought junk and I fixed it up, but I did it in the right areas, right neighborhoods. And now I've owned it for 15, 18, 20 years. It couldn't get any more seasoned. But I don't see the point in having a massive amount of my portfolio paid off. Not interested in paying a bunch more in taxes. So that would be my first two indicators are time in the market and doing value add stuff.
Awesome. We're seeing that time in the market being a huge factor right now, especially what happened to rents in 2020, 2021, when everyone was saying, don't buy because there's this massive crash coming. Rents have pretty much doubled. So Mike, what are the ways that you've increased cash flow on properties over the years?
So first and foremost, I want to be really clear. There's really two things that separates me from the two of you is I spend 10%, or at least I did in the beginning. I don't spend anywhere near that now, but 10% of my money went to the property managers in the beginning. So I was that BiggerPockets person making 150, 200 bucks a month and thinking I struck gold. I was that guy. That started 20 years ago. So a couple of things that you come to realize when you're in the game this long. One is time in the market for a couple of reasons. Stuff that I bought early, rents have doubled, tripled, and almost quadrupled over 20 years. So that's helpful, especially when you have fixed rate debt, as I keep talking about. Second, I manage my debt. So I've done cash out refis, I've done rate and term, I've done 1031 exchanges. Right? If you can buy an asset, cheap, value add, hold it, it peaks in prices in 1031 into your next piece of junk, and then you fix that up, it really explodes, right? So I went from 8 to 80 and my cash flow went from, I don't know, 12, 1300 bucks to, over 10 grand. Once we kind of seasoned all of that, and I had no new money, right? It was all equity, all 1031. So I am an active manager of my portfolio, right? To me, debt is to be used as a tool. Debt is to be restructured. Sometimes it makes sense to just do rate and term, right? Let's just say the stuff I bought 12 years ago at 6%. Let's say we're at 6% today. If you just do a rate and term refi, but you add the 12 years back on, your payment goes down, right? Sometimes that is enough of a good reason. I'm kind of like Matt, where I don't like having a disproportionate amount of equity. I like having the dry powder so I can take advantage of the opportunity, but I'm also later in the game, right? I've told everybody on my channel that if I can't find a deal in 2 years, I'll write some checks and pay debt off. But I like to have the option because I've been around enough to know that lenders can turn off in a heartbeat. And when that happens, there's going to be amazing deals to the people that have capital. I've done the value add. That was the biggest thing. I wrote about examples in my book. One of the things that I was doing during the crash is I wasn't buying my traditional 3 and 4 bedrooms. I was buying 2 bedrooms. Why? Wall Street, the big bad wolf, was only buying 3s and 4s. I couldn't compete. I didn't have the relationships. So I bought 2-bedroom, 1 baths that had 1,000 square feet. Why? Because usually speaking, it was easy to create a 3rd bedroom. If you can buy a 2 that Wall Street misses and rent it as a 3 for a wall and a closet, life is good. So I did dozens of those. You just got to be a student of the game. Again, I was that BiggerPocket person, and that's where I started. And I was happy as hell. Norris Drive, $225, happy as hell. But once you have that for 5 years, rate and term, refi out, buy more, you just got to keep going. You got to keep growing. And oh, by the way, Norris Drive, when I bought it was $10.95. Today it's like 23 something, $23.50 maybe. It's just time in the market. And don't be lazy. I think dead money is lazy money, especially when you're in a growth phase. If you're at the end and you're seriously contemplating retirement, chill out. Totally cool. Most of the people listening to this, they're at 0 or 1. So to me, my day job was my fuel that allowed me to keep repositioning capital. And folks, I am not the appreciation guy. There are plenty of BiggerPockets people out there, the burr this, the burr that. I think that's one of the most risky strategies in a flat market. It's going to bankrupt people. Mm-hmm. I was always cash flow day one. Cash never, no, right? Alligator, no alligator. That's the only picture in my first book because I was stupid enough to do a cash out refi and make it negative. Don't you ever do that. What I would tell a BiggerPockets person who's hearing 200 is, me too. That's how I started. You won't stay there long. Get in the game, do a great deal, only do great deals. The market is coming to us investors. You're going to be able to do some amazing residential deals for motivated sellers. Just do the work. Stop listening to others and get out and do the work.
ultimately my goal was to make work optional.
Yeah.
Like I wanted income coming in that I didn't have to sell my life 1 hour at a time for, that covered way more than my living expenses.
Me too.
To date, I haven't taken any money out. I haven't recycled capital. So someday I might do a cash out refinance or a home equity line of credit and try to grow a portfolio bigger.
But not today.
For now, my goal is stability. I'm recycling cash flow. That stack is getting bigger and bigger. And I've got to call that my, what do you call it? Dry tinder, ready for the if banks stop lending and prices, I know, Mike, you've said this in the past that you wouldn't do it, but I might buy a place all cash, wait for things to change, and then do a refinance out of that where it would still make sense and still give me my 10% return. Mm-hmm. It's nice to have options. And the one thing I took away from all three of us, I've only been doing this 10 years, but that what I consider massive cash flow from very few number of units comes from time in the market. You guys nailed it. So imagine this, everybody watching right now who's thinking, okay, I can't buy because prices are too high, rates are too high. It just doesn't make sense. Hunt for those good deals, because imagine the person in 2008 who didn't buy because prices were too high and rates were too high. And then prices crashed and they thought they were a genius. Wouldn't you love to buy 20 properties right now for 2008 prices? I know I would. Awesome. Well, thank you both for that. I appreciate it. If people want to get a hold of you, Matt, and ask you questions, how can they find you?
Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube, as well as Instagram, and 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on YouTube, my live stream.
Yep. And my goal is to come this Sunday and stump you like you did me. Mike, if people want to reach out with questions, how can they get a hold of you?
One rental at a time, website, YouTube, books, all that stuff. And I do my live stream 8 a.m. Saturday morning for 1 hour.
And just in case somebody doesn't want to sit through 3 hours and 24 minutes of a live stream to figure out how Matt stumped me, towards the end, he was trying to be nice and asked me which place I would rather invest in on the map behind me. I thought he was talking about real places. I have no idea what he was talking about.
They're real to some of us, Dion.
That's more real to me than the world is. I've spent more time there than in the real world.
Exactly. See?
But you got me. Good job. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.